Welcome to this review of the Midweek meeting for February 17th to 23rd, 2025. Friends, we welcome you. Thanks for joining us. And now let's jump right in. So in this week's Bible reading, we are starting the reading of the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. Last week, we completed the book of Psalms. And now we are starting a very interesting and fascinating book, and that's the book of Proverbs. So, one of the main points of this midweek's Bible meeting is about advice. Who are you listening for advice? And we must pay attention to whom we listen. And because that makes the difference, literally, between life and death. So that's one of the main points. And then we're going to be responding to an interesting question about the word fool. The word fool and foolish generally referring in the scripture. What's the meaning in the scriptures about someone who's called fool one? And then in the Congregation Bible Study, we are completing chapter 22, the final journey of the Apostle Paul, and some lessons we learned from it. So friends, let's start with the first talk of the treasures from God's Word entitled Youths. To whom will you listen? Today I want to talk to you about something that all of us in a certain moment in our lives have faced. The decision of who to listen to. Imagine for a moment that you are at a crossroads. To your right, there is a path that seems easy, full of laughter, acceptance, temptations, and people telling you what you want to hear. On the other side, to your left, there's a narrower, more difficult path, but it promises something deeper, something more lasting. Which one would you choose? Today, we're gonna be considering how we can make the best decision, because at the end, who we listen to will determine the course of our life. And that's why the Bible at Proverbs, verse 8, chapter 1, is encouraging us to listen, my son, to the discipline of your father, and don't forsake the instruction of your mother. So, we know that right now, those words might sound like a broken record. Maybe a young person is thinking, my parents don't understand me. They're too strict. They don't know what it's like to be young today, in 2025. But let me tell you something. Your parents love you more than you can imagine. And yes, sometimes their methods might seem outdated, the rules might frustrate you, but behind all that is a heart that only wants the best for you. And we remember the story of a young man who, tired of the rules at home, decided to walk away from everything his parents had taught him. That's the story of the prodigal son. Actually, it's a movie from the organization, and he thought he'd be free, that he'd find happiness away from those chains, but was completely different. He soon discovered that the world was not as kind as he thought. No one cared for him the way his parents did. No one loved him in that unconditional way. So, friend, if you're feeling that frustration, take a deep breath and don't let emotions of the moment pull you away from those who love you the most. Your parents are not perfect or we are not perfect, but their love for you is real. And above all, if you are growing up in a Christian home, that love is guided by Bible principles that come from Jehovah. Now let's talk about another voice you might be hearing: peer pressure. That's why Proverbs 1:10 is telling us, my son, if sinners try to entice you, don't consent. So that's really important. Do you know why this warning is so important? Because as young people, we all want to feel accepted. We want to fit in, have friends, be part of something. And that's not wrong. That's understandable. The problem comes when, in order to be accepted, we let ourselves be dragged into things we know aren't right. Maybe you've been invited to a party where you know there will be things that don't honor Jehovah, or perhaps your friends are pressuring to do something that goes against your principles. In those moments, it's really easy to feel like saying no will make you look bad. They'll see you as the weird one, the boring one, and that's not something attractive. That's something uncomfortable. But let me tell you something. True strength is not in following the crowd, but in standing firm in what you believe. And we have some biblical examples of it. For example, Caleb. In biblical times, he was facing a similar situation. When everyone doubted God's promises, he stood firm, and in the end, he was blessed for his faithfulness. And you can be like Caleb too. You can say, no, thanks, that's not for me. And even if it seems hard at first, I promise you that over time, you'll gain something far more valuable than the approval of others: self-respect and God's blessing. And that's why the scriptures at Romans 12:2 says, don't conform the pattern of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind. These words are a powerful reminder. Your identity isn't in what the world thinks of you, but in what God thinks of you. Sometimes outside pressure can make you doubt who you are. It can make you feel like if you don't follow the trends, if you don't do what everyone else is doing, you won't fit in. But there's the truth. No one but Jehovah knows who you truly are and who you can become. So imagine you are in the ocean and the waves are like the opinions of others. If you let yourself be carried by them, you'll end up anywhere. But if you hold on to Jehovah like an anchor, He'll keep you steady right where you need to be. So friends, in conclusion, friends, young people around us, we know life is not always easy. We know there are moments when you feel misunderstood, when decisions feel overwhelming. But today, I want to leave you with this. You have the power to choose who to listen to. And that's the advice. Choose to listen to your parents because their love for you is genuine. Choose not to follow those who do wrong because your integrity is worth more than any approval. And the most important, choose to please Jehovah God because He is the only one who will never let you down. And remember, you're not alone. Jehovah is with you. giving you the strength you need to resist, to move forward, and to shine in a world that sometimes seems dark. So the next time you find yourself at that crossroads, remember this message and choose the path that, even if it's narrower, will lead you to a life full of purpose, peace, and blessing. Now let's move on to the spiritual gems section. So we are starting this week's Bible reading, the book of Proverbs, and let's start reading Proverbs 1:22, and it reads, "How long will you inexperienced ones love inexperience? How long will you ridiculers take pleasure in ridicule? And how long will you foolish ones hate knowledge?" So, when used in the Bible, to whom are the words fool and foolish generally referring? In the scriptures, in the Bible, when the word fool is used, it doesn't refer to someone lacking intelligence, but rather to a person who acts morally incorrectly, rejecting God's wisdom and principles and standards. In other words, a fool one is someone who, despite having the ability to reason, chooses to follow a path of foolishness, ignoring what or rejecting what is just and right according to Jehovah. A biblical example of it is Nabal from David's time, and it's not enough to be intelligent or knowledgeable. It's vital to apply that knowledge by following what Jehovah considers right and good. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. What spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share? And let's start with number 1. We have now Proverbs 1:1 and 2, and it reads, "The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, the king of Israel, to learn wisdom and discipline, to understand wise sayings." So this reminds us that true wisdom comes from Jehovah. We learn to value discipline not as something harsh, but as a tool that helps us grow in understanding and make wise decisions. Every day we strive to understand God's teachings and apply them in our daily lives. Number 2, Proverbs 1:3 reads, "To acquire the discipline that gives insight, righteousness, good judgment, and uprightness." So we choose to walk in justice and righteousness, knowing that these qualities brings us closer to Jehovah and allow us to be a light in the world as illuminators through our good actions. We strive to be sensible in our decisions and to act with integrity at all times, trusting that Jehovah guides us on the right path or way. Number 3, Proverbs 1:5 reads, "A wise person listens and takes in more instruction. A man of understanding acquires skillful direction." This teaches us that wisdom is not only for the elderly or the scholarly ones. It's for everyone willing to learn and be taught by Jehovah. The more we seek God, the more clarity we'll have in our lives, and we must be humble and recognize that there is always something new to learn. But a prideful person never thinks he needs to learn something. Number 4, Proverbs 1:7 reads, "The fear of Jehovah is the beginning of knowledge. Only fools despise wisdom and discipline." This teaches us that true wisdom is not based on human knowledge, but on recognizing God's greatness and living in obedience to Him. Every day we can approach God with humility and respect, asking Him to guide our decisions and lives. 5. 1:8 reads, "Listen, my son, to the discipline of your father, and don't forsake the instruction of your mother. The advice of our parents is a gift from God to us." And if we have the blessing and privilege to have our parents alive, we can take advantage of it. Of course, they are parents and they don't love their children, but that's not the case according to this context. Even if we don't always understand it, their experience and love can guide us. It's important to value and respect our parents. We should listen to their advice attentively and appreciate their efforts to guide us. If they are no longer with us, we can remember their teachings and apply them in our lives. So, if you wanna leave in the comments, what's the best advice? What's the best piece of advice you ever heard from your parents? I'll be there reading your comments, and it's gonna be a great opportunity to read and learn from you and the best piece of advice you receive from your parents. Okay, now the next one, number 6. Proverbs 1:10 reads, "My son, if sinners try to entice you, don't consent." This teaches us that we must be careful about our associations we keep. Even as adults, the biblical principle remains relevant. Bad associations, bad friendships can lead us astray. We can get trouble, literally, terribly trouble, if we have been involved in bad associations. It's not for children, even for adult people. 7. The same verse and is this comment, and this world may offer us temptations and paths that seem attractive but lead us away from God. We must stand firm and not let ourselves be dragged down by bad influences. Instead, we seek the association of good brothers and sisters. 8. Proverbs 1:9. This reads, "They are an attractive wreath for your head and a fine ornament for your neck." So wisdom and discipline not only protect us but also make us stand out as upright and valuable individuals in the eyes of Jehovah and others, like a nice ornament. This motivates us to be examples of integrity and humility in our families and congregations. 9. 1:15 reads, "My son, don't follow them. Keep your feet off their path." So the decisions we make have consequences. Following the path of evil may seem easy or tempting, but at the end, it only brings pain and separation from God. Before making a decision, let's consider whether it pleases Jehovah or not. Let's ask Him for discernment to choose wisely. And the last one, number 10, 1:16, this one reads, "For their feet run to evil, they hurry to shed blood." So today, many use their feet to do evil things, but we strive to use our feet to preach, to attend meetings, to work, and to help others. There is no doubt, Jesus used His feet to do the Father's will, and we walk toward holiness, not sin, because we know that only in Jehovah we find true life. Let's move on to the Congregation Bible Study. So we are concluding chapter 22, paragraphs 15 to 21, and the subtheme reads, I'm ready to die. But why the Apostle Paul is saying so? Let's find out in paragraphs 15 and 16 with the question, what message did Agabus bring and what effect did it have on those who heard it? And he had predicted the famine that occurred during the reign of Emperor Claudius, and that's why many of the brothers and sisters, they respect the prophet. But now he's there and he's saying a prophecy about Paul, and I quote, "This is what the Holy Spirit says. In this way the Jews will bind the owner of this belt in Jerusalem and hand him over the Gentiles." So the prediction shocked everyone there. They were in shock. And Luke says, when we heard this, we and the others there pleaded with him not to go up to Jerusalem. So they were there begging him not to go to Jerusalem. Some lessons we learn from this account. The brothers and sisters reacted with sadness and concern upon hearing this prophecy. Their love for Paul led them to plead with him not to go to Jerusalem. It's natural to feel fear of sadness when we face difficult situations or see others suffering. However, our reaction should not be to avoid suffering at all costs, but to trust that God is in control. And genuine faith is demonstrated through action. Through action. It's not enough to say we believe in God and just that. Actually, it's not a path of comfort, but a surrender and sacrifice. Following Jesus means being willing to suffer for him if necessary. 17 and 18. How did Paul demonstrate his firm resolve and how did the brothers react? Paul lovingly said to them, "Why are you weeping and breaking my heart?" Respectfully, they reacted. We read, when he couldn't be dissuaded, we stopped objecting and said, "Let the will of Jehovah take place." So they respected Paul's decision and stopped asking him not to go to Jerusalem. They understood that Jehovah's will had to be done, even if it pained them. Some lessons we learn from this. Doing God's will is not always easy or popular. Sometimes even those who love us will try to dissuade us out of concern or fear. However, our priority must be to obey God rather than please others. Jesus is our perfect model of obedience and dedication. He didn't seek the easy path, but the one that glorified God. As his followers, we are doing our best imitating his example. If someone close to us is going through a trial or making a difficult decision, we could offer support, practical help, and pray for them. 19. What valuable lesson do we learn from what happened to Paul? We never want to try to dissuade others from pursuing a self-sacrificing course in serving God. We can apply this lesson to many situations, not just that involve life and death. For example, while many Christian parents have found it difficult to see their children leave home to serve Jehovah in distant assignments, even international assignments in dangerous places, territories, they are determined not to discourage them. Some lessons we learn: when someone makes a decision to serve Jehovah, we must respect their choice and not discourage them, even if it pains us or is difficult to accept. Parents play a crucial role in teaching their children to prioritize serving God. When children make decisions based on these principles, parents should feel proud and support them, even if it requires sacrifices. And prayer is a powerful tool to help us accept difficult situations and align our feelings with God's will. Through prayer, we can find peace and strength. The next one reads, "The brothers welcomed us gladly." 20 and 21. What illustrates Paul's desire to be with the brothers, and why did he want to be with those of like faith? At every stage of the journey to Jerusalem, they sought the company of their brothers and sisters around town. So in Tyre, they had found them and stayed with them for a week. In Ptolemais, they had greeted them and spent a day with them. In Caesarea, they had stayed several days at Philip's house, and later the book of Acts says that some brothers and sisters extended them a warm and gladly welcome. So that's really important. And some lessons we learn: Christian unity is really essential for our spiritual growth and emotional well-being. Hospitality is a practical way to show love and support to our brothers. Opening our places, our homes, and hearts to fellow believers strengthens the bonds of Christian brotherhood. Small acts of kindness can have a big impact on others' lives. When we gather together, we can strengthen one another and remember that we are part of a spiritual family. Arriving with a positive attitude and willingness to encourage others can make a difference. And no one is so strong, spiritually strong, that he didn't need others. We have this biblical example of the Apostle Paul. He was an genuine anointed one, but he was there and he received the help of his fellow believers. Even the most faithful servants of God need the support and company of the Christian brotherhood. Christian unity with other brothers strengthens us to face life's challenges. It reminds us that we are not alone and that we have spiritual support in the Christian congregation, brotherhood. Okay, friends, that's a wrap for this consideration. Thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your visit. We hope you have a wonderful day. Be safe and hope to see you in our next video.